it takes time for information to travel to my eye, process it, and be. So I live in the past throughout my entire life. I live in the past. So as we expand, there's a funny physical property of expanding as things move apart. The second law of thermodynamics means that if I move further and further away from you, you lose more and more heat. So the temperature of the universe right now is about 0.0001 Kelvin or whatever. We'll get to a point where it'll be so cold, it'll be absolute 0 Kelvin, where the universe is not able to sustain any more heat and everything will cease to exist into a solid form and we will all die, technically. And that is projected, that's one of the theories of how we'll die. The other theory is something called the Big Crush. The Big Crush is that right now the universe is expanding, but at one point we have so many galaxies and neuron clusters and all this. But one point we predict that, you know what dark matter is? Yeah, so you know what dark matter is, right? The dark matter can be, because that's what provides that's what provides the increased acceleration of galaxies moving apart. But scientists have a theory that says that at this point the mass will overcome the dark matter and the acceleration will slow and slow and slow to a point where the galaxies will start converging back into a singularity, and then the whole Big Bang starts again. So this is one of the theories where galaxies explode from Big Bang, they expand, and then they come back together, form singularity, Big Bang again. This goes in a process of 40, 50 billion years, and it goes again and again and again and again and again. This is one of the theories. But the third theory, I can't really remember. I don't really want to talk about it on camera because I don't really know that much about it. But these are the two theories that scientists have proposed. Honestly, these are all very theoretical physics, you know? We can't prove anything, but in terms of what I believe is how the formation and the ending, in order to know the formation of the universe, you need to know how it is proposed to end. Because the universe will end at one point, we know that. We just don't know how. So I hope that gives you some sort of idea.
Sure. I just wanted you to explain to me, how do you entertain rationally the idea that the universe could have started uncaused, without any cause, right?
Yeah.
So you propose these two theories. But interestingly, for your information, as a Muslim, I can tell you the Quran talks about a lot of these natural phenomena.
Can I say something about Islam actually? Like, I talked to a friend of mine about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, about Islam, and I told her, because I come from Malaysia, so majority Muslim population, 70% Muslim population. I grew up as a Hindu, but now I'm pretty much I call myself a pantheist, but basically I'm an atheist. But we talked about Islam and religion, and she told me that actually Islam is a pantheistic religion. It's a religion that actually believes that Allah is everything. Allah is all-encompassing, and Allah is not like, it's not like Jesus Christ in the sense that you can see a picture of Jesus Christ. You can't see a picture of Allah, you know? Like, it is everything. And that's the beautiful part for me for Islam. That is, for me, the most beautiful part of Islam.
I'm sorry to take that away from you, but that's not what Islam teaches anyway. So you have been clearly misinformed about what we believe about Allah. We don't believe Allah is everywhere.
Yeah.
What we believe is, before the universe was created, Allah existed. And then He created the creation outside of His existence. So it's a separate creation altogether. So pantheism or pantheistic belief is where God or the Creator created everything within itself, right? Everything is God and everything is part of God. This is one kind of understanding.
Yes.
But in Islam it's totally different. We don't believe that this universe is part of God or within God itself.
God is a completely different entity.
So God is the creator, and creation is totally distinct and separate. God created the creation, and the creation didn't exist. And when we say God is everywhere, we actually say God is everywhere in His knowledge. So not a leaf falls, He's aware of it. Even if it's the blackest ant on the darkest night, you know, in a dark valley or something like this, at the bottom of a mountain, Allah knows the existence of it. That's His knowledge. But of course you can, but on His physical presence, no. He's not physically present in every atom atom of this universe, if I were to clarify it to you in that way.
So what you tried to tell me is basically that I think I've been misinformed about I do still think that Islam does have some pantheistic values. Maybe not a lot, but it does have some pantheistic values. But from what you described to me is that God is encompassing everything, watches over everything, but isn't directly inside everything per se. You know, God created everything, plus also things outside of this universe and in this realm too. You know, so that's what you've tried, and thank you for teaching me that.
That's what I'm saying. So we have this belief where the Creator is distinct and separate from the creation. So we worship the Creator. When you say we worship, we surrender to our Creator. Because if someone gave me life and it's going to cause me to death, I need to know what the purpose I'm created for. I mean, I'm not going to just question, oh, I didn't want to be created and so on. Because clearly, I mean, I had no involvement in my own existence. I mean, I was dependent on the Creator to create me. So to return back to the point that we were discussing about the causation of the universe or not. So you talked about the 3 models and you explained to me about the 2 models. Yeah. But if you look at it now, as I mentioned, as an interesting side point where the Quran talks about how Allah says, you know, Allah created this universe, and He says, وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَمُوسِعُونَ, and we are His expanders, we're expanding it. So God is clearly telling us that the universe is expanding. But it doesn't stop there. Allah tells us, Allah is the name of God, as you are aware, to us Muslims, that this universe, as it's expanding, He will roll back the universe like a scrollless roll, and it will be rolled back. That means there will be another big crunch or big crush, whatever you want to call it, and there'll be another creation, and that another creation will be much larger, much more bigger than this current universe. Okay, that will be in the hereafter. Because at one point this universe will be all totally destroyed, and it'll be interesting for you to find out, because when you say about we learn more about the origin of the universe when we study or understand how it's going to end, the Quran in so many different places talks about the mechanics of how the universe will come to an end. Actually, there are books written by scientists, Muslim scientists, giving you the physical descriptions and the mechanisms of how the Quran describes in terms of whether there's going to be stars colliding with each other, how there's going to be, whether it's going to be a heat death or not in terms of the collisions.
Don't get me wrong. I feel like when Islam was founded and when it was prospered for the first time, that's what led to the golden age of Islam. You know, scholars, scientists. You know, Islam was a beautiful religion back in the day, but now it's not the religion that's the problem.
Because we left the learning of it.
Yeah, if I may say, like you guys, you know, screwed over with the importance of what was taught. Yeah. You know, I'm not well versed in the Quran, but I know from living in a Muslim country for the last 21 years of my life that look, there's a lot of good values. There's huge museums showing the Muslim golden age and what kind of inventions they made. You know, what kind of discoveries they made. It's brilliant. Muslims have forgotten what made them so great.
Exactly. And you would know that the reason why they achieved all of this is because what the Quran tells them to. It says, go and see, travel along the earth, inside the earth, and see how God created originated the creation.
That's the thing about the Quran. Why I prefer the Quran over the Bible per se, because the Quran, if I remember, please correct me if I'm wrong, just saying, but like, if I remember, is that the Quran made sure that there was no editing compared to the Bible. The Bible was traveled all across the world, and fucking how many reiterations were there of the Bible? You just go to type in Bible on Google and see how many types of Bibles you'd see and different connotations and meanings. Quran, there's only one. You can change the language and you can lose the meaning of the Arabic in the language, but there's only one. There's only one, and that's the beautiful thing about it. But you see, I grew up from Malaysia, you're probably thinking to yourself, you look so highly up to the Quran, why are you not a Muslim? And I look back at Malaysia, if I may excuse my language, Malaysia's fucked up.
Better not to use it, because as you can see, because people who are watching, they may be on different age levels.
I'm sorry for the profanity, but this is my personal opinion for living there for the last 21 years of my life. I'm a Malaysian citizen, that's all I'm saying. But here's the thing. In Malaysia, Islam isn't just a religion, it's a culture. it's a culture, and if you're not in Malaysia, there's three races. There's more races, but let's just say three, right? Malay, Indian, Chinese. Malay are the not indigenous. They're the ones that actually, in history, they came to Malaysia and took away the power from all of the indigenous people, called the Orang Asli, which means original people. So they took away their rights and they said, this is my land. All right? So that's what they did, to say it quite bluntly. But if you're not a Malay, and you're not, and because basically what they try to do, the government tries to promote that being Muslim and being Malay, you'll get benefits, discounts for property, discounts for this. So try to be a Muslim, try to be this. It becomes an incentive. It doesn't become spirituality.
Is there some sort of inequality there?
There's a massive public inequality in Malaysia.
Doesn't sound very fair, does it?
It's not fair, and it's made me look at religion, culture, politics in a very, very bad light.
I mean, I personally don't know much about Malaysian government or the country. I mean, from what you say, if this is true, I mean, it doesn't sound very fair. Anyway, so I mean, I appreciate where you're coming from. I mean, with all the experiences that you had based on this growing up or being cultured within the system, yeah, it might be quite.
It's just that, like, a lot of these people, they, you know, as a Muslim, for example, you're allowed to keep dogs if the dog is used for a purpose, for service or hunting or etc. Right? But then in some messed up way, the rule in Islam in Malaysia is that the dog has to stay 18 foot away from me. Where's that said? Where's that said in the Quran? People make shit up all the time.
Anyway, there are issues with every country where, you know, you can see when they're legislating.
I have with religion.
Sure, but do not think because of the cultural aspect to a particular religion of Islam that the Islamic, the religion itself, the ideology itself is something that you should say, I'm not interested in. Because you should always isolate, the people who adhere to a particular religion or non-adhere and to the religion itself. To give you an example, right? If Islam says, do not cheat, and you see Muslims cheating, you shouldn't automatically somehow say, I don't like Islam because of I'm surrounded by Muslims who are cheating. These Muslims are at fault of not following their religious teaching which says do not cheat. So I can understand that this has a lot of impact on how we assess a religion. But what I would like you to do is to differentiate between the people who follow a particular ideology and the ideology itself. Because it is true, and I agree with you, if we were to just follow the behaviors and attitudes of, say, Muslims in several countries, it will probably put us off from even thinking about, okay, is Islam a good religion or not?
I'll tell you what I feel about the ideology. There are many things I do not agree with the ideology. I think some of the ideologies in the Quran that are said in the Quran, I'm not well versed. I've tried reading it. It is of interest of me to read, even though I'm an atheist, kind of, like, I try to read the holy books of a lot of religions, you know, to try to understand what, not just to understand what they're talking about, but how was their time like, you know, because there's many ideologies in the Quran that I don't agree with, but
do you want to share with some of the things that you, why you don't share with them? I mean, why don't you actually accept those as
it's like
the sound?
It's like eating pork is not prohibited because it's somewhat dirty, you know, it's a dirty being. But I understand it. I understand it because back in the day, you know, parasites and worms were, you know, it's very easy for meat to be infested, you know. Like now, this kind of philosophy, it's not really a big deal. I obviously can say other things of, like, you know, which I don't really want to say, like, for example, Prophet Muhammad marrying a 9-year-old or peace be upon him. I'm sorry. I do want to, even though I'm an atheist, I do want to respect my fellow brothers and sisters of Islam. You know what I mean? And every religion, you know. But like these things do put me off. Like, I do not agree with them. But looking at the whole story as one whole and as a time many years ago, I mean hundreds of years ago, it's understandable and it's not heresy. It's just a story that has quite a trivial, you know, like things that happen. But this is what I say to modern day Muslims, is that I personally, I like Islam. I like Islam, but you can't read everything and be like...
And is there any other things that... so I will address them all together just to clarify some of the issues. So once you mentioned about, the second example was the Prophet's marriage to someone quite young, an 8-year-old.
I really would have to think about it, but
the first one being...
But I can't really put it off in my head.
Okay, so let's address these two that you mentioned, right?
Let's address the two.
Okay, you see, the one the Quran tells us about the dietary laws in terms of what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat, there's a general principle. Allah tells us, eat what is pure and good, tayyib. Okay? Whatever is pure and good, we should eat. That automatically excludes everything that is impure and harmful and bad and so on and so forth. As a general principle, you would say this is a sound principle, because if we are going to eat to sustain ourselves, to nourish ourselves, it has to be something pure and good for us, for our health. Okay? So Islam gives us this principle. But it doesn't just stop there, just giving you this foundation principle. It gives you certain examples of foods to avoid. Okay? And if you look at now in terms of what is permissible and what is impermissible, the list of impermissible is there and everything else is permissible otherwise, right? So what's impermissible? Let's understand the reasons why. So it tells us, okay, dead meat, blood. Yeah? Take these two examples. I mean, there's a list there. If you look at one of the chapters 4 or 5, it starts by this, and حُرِّمَتْ عَلَيْكُمْ, forbidden to you are, and it lists those things. Dead meat or animal, which is dead. Is it good for us? As more and more we understand about the aspects of what happens on a dead meat, we know that
actually
say you've seen an animal that died 1 week ago and it's now rotting and so on and so forth. Are you going to eat that? Islam says Islam says no. Dead, something like that, you shouldn't be eating it. Blood, likewise. Why? Because it's something that is told. I mean, if you look at now scientifically, why you shouldn't drink blood, why you shouldn't eat blood. Blood by itself is not really a good, something that will give us all the nutrients and so on and so forth. It is a very source of good nutrients, broth for all these bacteria and all these germs. Okay, so anywhere in the world you go, say some deepest part in Africa where there is no laboratory where you can actually say, now this blood is sterile, there's no pathogen within it. No, there is there, and then start. And of course, I just want to make this point clearly. So everywhere you go, if you have all of this as a general principle, then people will really get ill by having.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Islamic principle is just to make us.
I want to definitely disagree.
Not being harmed.
Is the nutrient level. First of all, blood is full of nutrients.
That's what I said. For germs and so on and so forth.
No. But for us, as in like if we eat, let's say if we eat blood, it's full of nutrients. It's a great. That's why mosquitoes live on it, mate. Like, you know what I mean?
So why don't we eat it then?
We do. What do you call it? What's black pudding? You know, black pudding's blood. It's just congealed blood. But let me tell you one thing. I do agree with you. Pathogen, because the pathogen part is basically back in the day you can't get screeched.
Even today.
Yeah, even today. No, even today.
Not everyone has this kind of access to sterilization.
Very true. Very, very true. And I want to give that point as a very good point, because, and actually that's the main point, because back then they didn't. I don't think they knew better about pathogens, and I mean specific pathogens and these complicated pathway mechanisms. Maybe not, but they knew that blood was a transmitter of pathogens, and this is bad. So
people used to drink blood and eat blood, right?
Yeah.
Islam didn't just say, okay, oh, that's it in a vacuum. People knew. Look, maybe I didn't make myself clear when I said about nutrients. When I clarified to you that very good source of all of this, Islam looks at things holistically and say, look, the harm that you get from it is more than the benefit you receive. One of the example, or two of the examples, is gambling and intoxication with alcohol and so on and so forth. The Quran says there is benefit and there is harm. and the harm outweighs the benefit, and this is why it's prohibited. Okay, so Islam doesn't say, for example.
Can I go into one thing about what you just said about intoxication? Can I delve into the intoxication?
Sure.
So, what does it mean to be intoxicated? Like, is it like, does that just mean alcohol? Does that mean drugs, or is that specific type of drugs, or is it where does the line draw? You know?
Yeah. So the Quran of Islam explains that this is khamr, this is about alcohol, and of course you can then make a logical deduction, or the teaching of the Prophet will explain further that it's not only alcohol itself, but all other intoxicants.
Okay. So what about a cigarette?
So yes, scholars have deduced from this cigarette will also come because.
What about shisha then?
Same thing. Shisha, do you know scientifically, shisha is more harmful than cigarettes.
Yes,
when you
100 times worse. 1 hour of shisha is equal to about 150, 200 cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know?
When I did
and you also don't forget the heavy metals such as selenium inside the shisha. I don't like shisha. I'm a smoker, but I don't like shisha because shisha shit. But
so let's return to the subject.
It's so prominent in the Middle East and in these
they should have realized this. The culture needs to be refined. Culture needs to be refined by the religious teaching. So people often go by their own desires and they just do it, knowing that it's wrong. They just keep on doing it.
But then, if shisha is so prominent, why is alcohol not prominent? Why is there a kind of like prominent?
When I say shisha, I mean the tobacco that is consumed through this pipe that filters to the water and so on. It doesn't stop the organic and other chemicals that is within this, which causes all the problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But if it's something else, I don't know what else they smoke. Other than tobacco.
Weed,
I don't know.
Whatever,
okay.
you know.
But I'm really talking about the tobacco aspects from there, not nicotine, where you get all this by itself.
What I'm trying to get to, or what I'm trying to ask you, is that why is tobacco such a, it's not regulated at all, and nobody really cares about it in the Muslim world, really, like Malaysia, Middle East.
But the scholars have given their verdict that this is something that.
But the culture has not, and
the culture needs to own up to the religious teaching.
And the thing is, not all the scholars have. Because I live in a country where scholars dictate the law and the state. I mean, sorry, excuse me, the church. When I mean the church, I mean the masjid. The masjid and the state is partial.
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's.
Don't say anything, Edmund.
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, it's one thing, you know what I mean? Like, it is one thing, because basically in my country, if we cancel concerts for pop stars, like Selena Gomez, you know Selena Gomez, right? Or let's say just Taylor Swift, or any famous pop star, and they don't dress they dress maybe under the skirts here, yeah? The skirts here, and the government can just ban them. Just ban them and be like, these people are not allowed because they promote this bad behavior. Who's to say that? I've never seen a scholar say that's a bad. I think the scholar would actually be like, that's fine.
No. When it comes to how we dressed and how we behave, there is already something that is well known. You don't have to get a scholar to tell you. The aura, meaning what is your garment that you should cover, the essential part of your body, it is well known to every Muslim man or woman. You don't need to go to a scholar to learn this information. So likewise, any kind of partying where there is all this exposure of the human anatomy, obviously it is not correct. You don't need a scholar to tell that. I want to return to the subject about you said ideologically there are some issues that you have.
But I do want to delve into this this intoxication part and why Muslims, as in your point of view, just your point of view on why Muslims play this hypocrisy card, with the tobacco and alcohol.
So because
I really want to understand.
Alcohol is very clear to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, or to the scholars. I'm talking about lay people to the scholarly people, that it is not allowed. Okay, this is clearly something that is taught from the very beginning to every Muslim. So if you now have a country where it has legalized and it's saying it doesn't give really a notice that this business is going on, then this is the government that is not being very Islamic in its teaching. If the Muslims are doing this, they're not following Islam. Tobacco is a recent thing. It's a recent phenomenon where the link to death and lung cancer is established with tobacco smoking. So countries or people or government or establishments are catching up slowly, albeit slowly, about this, and then eventually I'm sure there will be a legislative measure when they will say, look, the benefit that we're getting from the taxation and from this, you know, the selling of tobacco, because it is really a money-making industry, like how many people consume. So if the government can take this step, then eventually they will stop. But what needs first, I agree with you, more and more prominent scholars to come up with this verdict and say, look, this is according to the Islamic text, now should be prohibited because of it causing you harm. It's like killing yourself with your own hands.
Okay, all right. That's a good point. You know, I think you didn't really answer my question, but to be honest, I want to say the fact that like I mean, you told me that there's a link between you know, lung cancer and smoking, for example, but tobacco is not a recent thing. Tobacco, just like you know.
But how back far did we know that tobacco could kill?
How back far did we know that alcohol killed? Let's be honest. So what scientific study?
We know alcohol is not necessarily just linked with killing. Tobacco smoking, does it really befogs your mind and you're out of your mind? You don't know what you're saying, what you're doing? Compare this to alcohol.
Definitely, alcohol is a hallucinogen. You know,
tobacco. When somebody smokes tobacco, do they really their mind get befogged and they're really not in their own self?
No.
Good. So the principle of banning alcohol, because it's intoxicants, it really befogs your mind, you're not in your own self, you're not conscious what you're doing and so on. That is the reason. So you might go and kill, or you might go do something totally bad, right? For example, kill yourself, or, you know, insult others, or, you know, cause problems and fighting. So many of the violent crimes in this country, for example in Britain, is under the influence of alcohol, right? Okay, fine. So Islam links with the alcohol, how it, you know, makes your mind befogged, that you're not really.
I understand. That's a good answer.
Tobacco wasn't like this, and because it doesn't do that. So it has to have now a clear link with harm to your body to be banned Islamically from this legislative period.
That's a fair answer.
Now, coming back to the second point about the Prophet ﷺ marrying someone as young, if you look at it now, Islam doesn't encourage us to marry someone young as 6, 7, 8 and so on and so forth. The teaching of Islam is very clearly in the Quran. When people have reached the age of rushd, or age of discernment of right and wrong, okay, this is when you should give the children, the orphans, the Quran says, to marriage. But of course, marriage has to be done in a way when people are fit for marriage, okay? Because you cannot do any harm. But again, the principle of Islam is very clearly, even in marriage, there should be no harm done. When you go and look at the historical details why Prophet ﷺ married, his first marriage, let's understand that. He was about 25 and he married someone 15 years older than him. And that was a marriage until she died. Many other marriages is where most of the widows came and so on, and they offered her themselves up to the marriage to the Prophet ﷺ. She was the only one who was not married, and it was one of his best friend's daughter. He was the one who was offering him to make a relationship stronger, because at that time, marriage is all about, you know, having this common relationship and bondage and so on and so forth. So until she became mature, you know, she wasn't in the Prophet's home. So this is something that we miss the historical context, exactly why the marriage was there. When we know that she was, this young lady was already betrothed or engaged to another person beforehand. So this was a cultural norm then. And then when people become of their age, then they'll go to their husband's home and so on and so forth.
But that's what I mentioned in the first part, was that, like, these, you know, there was a point in why Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married a 9-year-old, you know. There's a reason, there's an understanding. It's ideology that I don't believe for now per se, I don't agree with. but I have an understanding, like as you have provided me, that this happened for a reason, and there was, you know, like it's not just like how people like, or what I would say haters would put it, as in like, oh, he just did it because he's a pedophile. No, there's obviously more. There's more of a story to it, you know, and unfortunately, I would have to go because I'm being very, very cold. But it was very nice talking to you.
What's your name? No problem. No problem.
What's your name?
My name is Mansur. What's yours?
Visa. Nice to meet you. Visa.
Visa. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And maybe we talk again another time if you do come along and speak.
This is our first time.
Has Hamza offered you a copy of the Quran to read?
No.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's been in Visa, right?
Yes.
You've been in Malaysia, so you know Muslims. We believe in the Quran. You know, both of you, just recommend you to go and read. So at least next time when you do talk, then we can have something to talk about. Do you have just a free copy as a gift if you don't mind? The reason why, so we can take this as a point to discuss next time.
I'll take it. You know what I mean?
It's gonna go for our book club.
Is it in English or?
Please, in English, please.
I prefer that. Nah,
Or you can find one online.
Is it English translation as well? Let's have a look.
It is.
Oh, this is all in English. Oh, beautiful cover. There you go.
Beautiful cover.
Do you have another one? Do you have another one?
We share.
Okay, no problem. Yeah? That's okay.
But
Yeah, so
George Bush will not save you, but this will save you. Yeah?
he's saying this will save you. That's of course. So do read,
glad I have that.
do read, and perhaps make some points, and we can discuss from there. Because
because like I want to say like right now I'm taking your book not because you know it's like an awkward thing if you offering me and I'm taking it because honestly
We have to read it. I think we should read it.
These are like I said earlier, I have interest in reading the holy books, and I don't think per se I'm gonna convert. I hope that doesn't disappoint you, but I do want to be more knowledgeable about this.
absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong in acquiring knowledge.
And seeing if it's the truth or not.
Yeah, because I honestly that's how it works, mate. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, you're not gonna know you're right until
At the end, all we can do is logically come to the closest message. That's it.
And you know our logic differs, but we all can be happy by reading the same thing.
Both of you take care, and until next time,
Nice to meet
we'll
you.
see you again, inshallah.
Nice to meet you.
Take care, guys. See ya. Bye.